Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest. Ryker, it's been a whirlwind in NBA free agency. It seems like the whole league is changing teams. Stuff we didn't expect, stuff we expected for the last couple weeks are happening. The Toronto Raptors have been quiet so far. We're making this podcast now as the Kawhi rumors are coming through, so maybe he'll sign with the Raptors or the Lakers or something during this podcast. But as of now, the Raptors haven't made any big moves, but they have picked up one player. Matt Thomas, he played in the EuroLeague. He has a really interesting kind of skill set to bring into the Raptors. What are your just initial thoughts on bringing in Matt Thomas to the team?
Well, my initial thoughts, Ben, and this will be the highlight of the podcast, is a 48.5% three-point shooter. Now, albeit he's a 6'4", white guy, not in a racist way, but I don't know what that reflects upon his athleticism, right? But he could be a sharpshooter, Ben. He could be a two-guard that comes off the bench, firing away, getting a few points for the Raptors.
Yeah, certainly. Masai Ujiri, he's got his scouts all over the world playing. And to just a bit of a background on this guy, you mentioned he's 6'4", about 195 pounds. He played at Iowa State. And you mentioned the 48% three-point shooting. It's a ridiculously high number. He's looked at as a great shooter from all over the floor. He can score off the dribble. He has a good feel for the game. And apparently he's a decent rebounder as well for the guard position. He's not going to be Reggie Evans or Dwight Howard or something out there, but certainly a guy that can get some boards. But you brought it up. His athleticism is apparently average for a guard wing you want in the NBA, so he's not going to lock any guys down. He gets beat off the dribble a lot. So he's your prototypical three-point shooting specialist. Maybe his defense is improved. It's a bit better, and maybe Nick Nurse and the training staff can get his defense up. But a guy that can knock down threes and come into the game, it's a 3-year, $4.5 million contract, so he's not coming in expected to start and get a lot of minutes. But a guy that can maybe come off the bench and knock down a shot is always valuable to an NBA team.
Ben, you're absolutely right. And Masai Ujiri, we've broken this down a million times. He has a knack for picking out the diamond in the rough, the needle in the haystack, right? His developmental staff and the recruiting team, they just do a fantastic job in finding players that seemingly other teams ignore or that just slip way down the radar. So you're right. We never expect for these players to come in with immediate impact, right? And guys like Pascal Siakam now, who are pivotal towards the future of the Toronto Raptors, 3 years ago or 2 years ago, he wasn't a guy that anybody had any crazy expectations. Yeah, exactly. No crazy expectations for, but now he's a pivotal piece, right? So that's the development that's key. So getting him on a 3-year contract is pretty good. And it's worth mentioning that a lot of the players on the Toronto Raptors championship team, they had inspiring backstories. They had tragic backstories with death and struggles in their early come-ups. And this guy, Matt Thomas, all the same, suffered a tragedy at 11 years old. His father committed suicide, so he has something that I would expect probably motivates him as a player as well, and that's not to say that it's going to have any bearing on how he does in the league, but, it's a guy that probably has a good work ethic, and that's the one thing that the Toronto Raptors really relish, is a player that, like Fred VanVleet, like Pascal Siakam, they just work every single day, and they build up to become a good player.
Yeah, no, certainly. You brought it up. The whole championship roster has had inspiring stories. So those are the kind of guys, the people that can overcome things that Masai Ujiri really looks at, or it seems he looks at, because his scouting, we're not really in the insider info on Masai Ujiri's scouting, but certainly seems like a guy that would fit in with the team. And a lot of people have brought up after this signing, Ryker, that Danny Green, he's been talking to a lot of teams. The Dallas Mavericks have been brought up. The Spurs actually have been brought up. The Lakers. And maybe this is insurance on Danny Green possibly fleeing in free agency. We made a video on if the Raptors are going to bring him back because he's looking for a long-term big money deal. Do you think this has any implications on whether or not Danny Green is going to get brought back? Or do you think this is just a minute move that Masai Ujiri is taking a risk on a 24-year-old from Europe?
Yeah, it's a good question, Ben. I don't think that this has any weight towards what the situation is with Danny Green. I think Danny Green has made it pretty clear that, for the most part, he's following Kawhi Leonard, right, and the money, because he's made it clear, he's stated that he wants a certain contract, he wants a certain amount of money, a certain amount of longevity, and so you would as a role player, right? You want certainty because
and he's
1 year
32,
anything can change. Exactly. He's an aging guy, and he's been on multiple podcasts where he's been very candid to say that he wants to be in an opportunity where he can win, right? And he would also like, because of the relationship that he's had from such a long amount of time now with Kawhi Leonard, that he will probably follow or reflect his move. So I think if we see Kawhi Leonard make a move for the Toronto Raptors, Danny Green is going to be following along. What I see this more so being is we traded away or got rid of a lot of the bench, right? There was... throughout the past regular season, right? We had one of the biggest benches in the league, and thankfully we cut down and shortened our roster, but now we need to go back to having that 13th, 14th man assurance, right? Or insurance. Not that they're going to be playing, but we just need to stack the roster and make sure there's guys that we can develop up at some point. That's what I think. I don't think it has anything to do with Danny Green.
Yeah, no, that's a very fair point, and we've brought up on multiple occasions, the Toronto Raptors, they traded a lot of their depth for the top 8 guys to be fully functional, in full form, the Marc Gasol trade, all the moves that Masai Ujiri has made. But that has left for a lot of expiring deals, 1-year contracts at the end of our bench who are aging veterans, so to speak. Jody Meeks, Eric Moreland, guys that don't necessarily have a massive future with the Toronto Raptors. Maybe they do, but it's not the young guys, because in past years we had Pascal Siakam, DeLon Wright, Norman Powell on our deep bench, and you looked at those guys as people with futures with the team. And maybe Masai Ujiri is looking to reload the deep bench with young guys that could possibly come in, and a 24-year-old that is playing very well in Europe. That's a very intriguing prospect to come over. He actually played with the LA Lakers in their Summer League team when Lonzo Ball and Kyle Kuzma on their roster, and they ended up winning the Summer League championship, and he was a name that was kind of thrown in the shadows because Kuzma had a breakout Summer League and Lonzo Ball was the talk of the town and all that. So, but he had I believe a 26-point game in their playoff run. He hit a lot of threes. I think he ended the Summer League playoffs shooting 14 of 16 from the 3-point line. So he's shown that he can do it against some NBA competition. Obviously, the EuroLeague is some of the best basketball in the world outside of the NBA. So I'm encouraged to see this guy come over and possibly come off the bench, be looking for minutes. We've brought up the point that the Toronto Raptors in the regular season usually have that second guard position going and playing a lot of minutes during the regular season, and we don't really have that guy established right now. We're going to make a video on Jeremy Lin if we should bring him back, but he was the guy that was expected to do that for the Toronto Raptors, but he struggled last season. But maybe this guy could fill that role, especially if Norman Powell's playing the 3, we're not sure where he's at. Maybe he could come in and play a role on this roster and maybe creep into the rotation.
You're totally right. Bringing up Jeremy Lin, because I think more indicative of this move is that Jeremy Lin's future with the Toronto Raptors is as uncertain as ever, rather than Danny Green, right? Because I could see us putting our trust more in a guy that has the ability to develop, as we've talked about, rather than somebody who has come in and really disappointed what we expected of him. Now, given it wasn't a huge risk to take, given he was on a very small contract, but it will be interesting to see what happens in that front. I wouldn't expect to see Jeremy Lin re-sign, but we will get into that. But with Matt Thomas, Liga ACB, it's a pretty respectable league in the European League, and his points dropped, and I'm looking at it now, but it seems like he switched teams, and so he got less minutes, took less shots per game, but he ended up increasing his field goal percentage, he increased his 3-point percentage, so although he was playing less minutes, I think he thrived even more as a rotation piece, it seems, just from looking at the stats, because I don't think either one of us really watch the European League games, but it is an intriguing guy, because if you can come out at a high level, right, and have a confident shot, and that's really all that you're being asked to do when you're out there on the court is to hit open shots, then you're a person that you're going to find some court time in the regular season, just as you said.
Yep, certainly. And you brought up the fact that he's been able to do it as a role player. One thing that a lot of players that are on the fringe of getting into the NBA struggle with are they've come up in high school, come up in college, the G League, European leagues, and they're the best player on the team. They have the ball in their hands 24/7, and that's the only way they're effective. They're rhythm shooters. They need to get 10 shots a game for them to be hitting things. But for a guy that to improve as he went to a better team and got less minutes. That's intriguing because the NBA is at the highest level. The Toronto Raptors are a championship team. He's not going to come in here and take shots away from Kawhi Leonard if he stays, but if he doesn't, Pascal Siakam, Kyle Lowry, whoever's on the roster, he's not going to take shots away from them. So if he can come in the game, float around, and flow with the offense and knock down his shots, even if he doesn't play for 12, a half, a quarter, anything like that, that's very encouraging.
100%, Ben. And like you said, the league has been shaken up. We're still obviously anticipating Kawhi Leonard and what's going to happen there because he's the biggest name that's left. Mm-hmm. Almost all of the free agents have already been signed, right? We've been hearing a lot about the big names, but I recently checked to see the smaller name guys that aren't getting as much publicity, and most people are locked in now to a contract. So we're really waiting, but this is, it's fun. At least we have something on the Raptors side that's rolling now, and hopefully this momentum turns into the biggest fish in the pond soon.
Certainly, it's kind of weird to be talking about the fringe guys on the Toronto Raptors right now while Kawhi Leonard's still at play, but we got to break down everything when it happens, so stay tuned to the Raptors Digest. You're the best for making it this far. Check out the Twitter, the Instagram, all that cool stuff. We'll keep you updated on anything Toronto Raptors, Kawhi Leonard, Danny Green, all the free agents we have going now, so subscribe to the channel. Riker, you have any last words?
You better stay, Kawhi. You better stay, my man.
Please. Please.
Cheers.